So I'd like to, officially and formally start the event. So firstly, to our panelists, thank you so much for joining us. And really, I'd like to, to welcome everyone and all our students and our participants. Welcome to our TC Global panel discussion on the future of work. I'm Ron McLucky. I will be your host and moderator for the day. And I'm delighted to have introduced our panel members. What I'll do is I'll mention their names briefly, and then I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Firstly, we have Ms. Andrea McLeod-Karim. She's International Relations Manager for Victoria University, obviously Wellington, New Zealand. We have Dr. Padmakali Banerjee, Pro Vice Chancellor and Academic Dean from Amity University. And we have Mr. Ernest Louis, Founding Director of Crossnest Consulting and also advisor to Sterlite Power. So welcome to our panel members. So I'm going to ask each panel member if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself literally in a minute or so. And if you'd like to share with our audience a little bit about yourself. So Dr. Banerjee, could we start with you?
Great. I'm very happy to be part of this panel, and thank you for inviting me. And to the youth, I would like to say that, I've spent almost nearly 3 decades in higher education. And of course, I belong to 2 different areas of management and psychology. As a Pro Vice Chancellor, I work very closely with skill development, curriculum design, and as an author, I write a lot to do with youth empowerment, leadership, and optimism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A very powerful background to add value to our session this afternoon. Andrea, could we please hear from you?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to be here with you today. As Ron mentioned, I am the Regional Manager for Victoria University of Wellington, and I look after South Asia and the Middle East, recruitment, marketing, partnerships, etc. I spend a lot of my time talking to prospective students, counseling them on the best way to move forward, what types of programs are suitable for them. I am based in Mumbai. I've lived in India for 13 years now. Yes, I do speak Hindi or only little bits of other regional languages. And very passionate about helping students to achieve the best outcomes for themselves, regardless of whether it's with my university or anywhere else.
Thank you, Andrea. Ernest.
Well, good afternoon to all the people who are attending this webinar today. And my name is Ernest Louis. I am on my own as a consultant in the area of human resources development. Prior to this, for over 3 decades, I have been an HR leader in many companies, both Indian multinational companies and multinational companies. I love to see young people succeed in the corporate world, and I've always worked towards that, starting from their hiring to their development, and looking forward to having this one.
Ernest, thank you so much. And to our students out there and our participants, we are really excited to have you with us. And we'd love to hear from you and the questions that you might wish to raise. So I'd invite you to please use the chat function to raise any questions that you would like to. We will have about 45 minutes, and the way I plan to use that is we'll have about 30 minutes panel discussion and also allow for a good 15 minutes or so questions and answers from our participants. So please post your questions on chat. We also have some amazing relationship managers from TC Global and also team members from our International Relations Division that will be answering sort of detailed technical questions as we go through. So everyone that raises a question will get it answered. either through the panel members or via email from one of our specialists. So folks, over the last 6 months or so, I mean, the world has just changed unbelievably. Who would have guessed 6 months ago that we would be sitting having a panel discussion with many people virtually. We all crave some sort of normality, whatever that may look like, for the future. But we can't escape recognition that COVID-19 has accelerated so many developments in industry, in the economy, in the world at large. And it's making the future happen much, much faster than we'd ever envisaged. If we think about the working remotely, the digital space, the cloud, automation, artificial intelligence, this is really reshaping every role, every function, every business out there. With the change of I guess, structures and organizations, and I guess this rapid acceleration into a new economy, companies are rebuilding themselves. They're creating new classes of jobs, new classes of skills, and really learning how we transition into the future. So our focus today is to explore what really lies ahead in the road ahead, and hear from our panelists on the future of work and how we can adapt and shape that future and thrive and prosper in it. So that's by way of introduction. So the first question that I would like to put to the panel, and this has been raised by many of our students, and the question is, what is the short to medium term impact on graduate employment of COVID-19? What is the employment scenario looking like for new graduates in 2 to 3 years' time? So, Ernest, would you like to pick up on that briefly?
Yes, Ron. Allow me maybe a minute to begin on a slightly optimistic note to remind all our viewers that the world has seen a COVID-like situation in the past as well, maybe not as intense, and we've always bounced back. And I read about how in 2009, when we had the recession, what happened then, and how did the world change? And one of the lessons that we learned then, at least for people who are new entrants to the workforce, was for them not to jump into just about anything, but to sometimes delay the process of getting into work and use that time to upskill themselves and upgrade themselves, and be ready when the world bounces back to then take full advantage of the recovery. And therefore, I do think that the world has changed quite a bit with COVID, and the forms of employment are changing. All of us have read a lot about it, but it does seem like certain functions like logistics or customer service or sales, you spoke about the digital skill sets or artificial intelligence. These are areas obviously will gain much more importance than the rest of, let's say, the high touch hospitality and all of those kind of sectors. And they will begin to change in the way these sectors are run. Therefore, the skill sets will change, and one is to apply one's mind and figure out what is your strength and area of interest, and marry that with how the world of work is changing to be able to be ready to have those opportunities. I think it's a time, and I would also say, and maybe we'll cover that a bit later, that the forms of employment will also change. It will no longer be the employee-employee relationship that used to exist in the past. You will actually see transformation as well. So a lot changing there, some in many, many positive ways, but we must be prepared to transform our own thinking to take advantage of the new situation, the new normal, as we call it.
Okay, thank you, Ernest. So what I see is a fairly positive view that the world has seen crises before. We're in a crisis. We will come out of this. Yes, there will be negative short-term impact, and that will also create certain opportunities for us in the future. And Andrea or Dr. Banerjee, would you like to briefly add anything to what Ernest has said?
Yeah, I think, Ron, I think there's a great, discussion that we are having, and I'm really looking forward. It's very easy to actually connect dots looking backwards, but when you look forward, I see a very changed world. The new normal is not going to be the way we were earlier. And one of the things that I want to really emphasize, basically because it is for the youth of our country and globally, I see that each of them are learners in crisis. So this pandemic, how to utilize this crisis will depend on your future steps that you're going to take now. So it's also a call to take the right kind of steps, the kind of learning that you had during pandemic times, the kind of decisions that you're going to take in terms of your career, in terms of improving the graph that you are into. And I must tell you that, the success will lie not just on your, intelligence in terms of your IQ, but a lot will depend on your optimistic intelligence and your attitude. So how much are you going to take risks? What are the kind of touch team transformation that you're going to do through peer group? How much are you going to use from the universities that are higher learning institutions? What are the kind of, decisions you're going to take now? So it's going to be a game changer. Let me tell you, each one of you, I'm sure you're going to be successful in whatever you pick up. But, to be successful, you need that extra edge. And I believe that, at this point, the youth should be targeting and self-development in terms of not just skills and competencies that are required for your field, but your fundamental, which are also known as your soft skills and competencies in terms of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We will be heading into that very shortly. Andrew, just any brief additions you'd like to make or comments you'd like to make on that?
And I'll be very brief, but I'll just say that I think it's important for students who are set to graduate or who are looking at their study opportunities to realize that not all sectors are impacted equally. I think Ernest addressed this in that the high touch, hospitality, tourism, etc. We have seen a lot of loss of jobs there. We have seen that graduate opportunities in these areas are affected. But there are other areas which are growing, whether it is healthcare, whether it is construction, whether it is data analytics. And it is important that when students are looking at their graduate opportunities, that they are doing sufficient research on the types of opportunities open to them in the area that they're thinking of pursuing.
So the point that you're making, if I understand you correctly, is that critical importance of the career planning, the research on what will be the sort of growing industries for the future.
Yes,
thank you.
Definitely, because different countries have had different levels of impact of COVID. Some have been impacted terribly. Some have, had, you could say, quite a mild effect. They're in recovery stage already, and different sectors have also been impacted differently. So, for example, IT is still booming.
Thank you. I'd like to move ahead, and I think Dr. Banerjee, you were heading in this direction, and as well as Andrea. What are the new skills that we believe employers will be looking for in this new world of work? What are the skills that will be in demand in future? And Dr. Banerjee, I think during our discussions before the seminar, you also raised an interesting concept of the global skills gap.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you'd like to start off on this, and then I'd like to move it on to Andrea.
Sure. Well, I would like to start by saying that I want each youth, be it in India or globally, to also focus on the sustainable development goals of the world, which also talks about the kind of new areas that are going to emerge. For example, we have been talking about areas on climate change, energy, we are talking about health and mental well-being, we're talking about education, beyond, in fact, poverty. I mean, we're not even talking about hunger and poverty. So So there is going to be a huge requirement for entrepreneurial competencies. And what that means is your ability to do risk-taking, a great research, because I don't want to be reactive, that one pandemic hits you and you say that certain sectors are not going to thrive. I can see innovation that is set in most of the sectors, including the ones which is maybe the worst hit in terms of hospitality. But I see a great change and the shift that is moving, that students should develop an all-round ability, improving their attitude towards life. So what they need to really upgrade is their competencies beyond their core competencies towards, for example, you're a student of, say, you're doing an engineering, and today everything is there, say artificial intelligence, machine learning is coming in, but your decision-making capabilities are going to be the game changer. So what is it, that skill that is required is your leadership skills, your ability to become a great communicator, your ability to understand. So even, basic things which were put under the basket of soft skills are now fundamental skills globally. So it is that people, we know that it is the survival of the fittest. So human race, you will have to be adaptable to that future. So you've heard about VUCA 2.0, which is really talking about the vision and the adaptability. So the students and the youth who are adaptable to the new world, you need to acquire that kind of flexibility in your approach towards new learning. So you have to now become a lifelong learner. There is no way of looking back. Because by the time you graduate, many things will change. So you cannot go back every time to a university to learn the basic skills. So you need to not learn just one soft skill or one computer, language, but you need to learn the art of learning. So I think that is something which will really differentiate in the world of tomorrow. And even innovation is happening like that. Even young entrepreneurs who are making an impact into the hospitality sector or the sectors which are entrepreneurial, social sector entrepreneurship is going to be the key for that result. And looking at your nation, you need to look at your community, your nation, and you need to look at the global requirement. So I think you need to develop yourself. I just devote your years to developing yourself as an individual, as a leader, as a thought leader. So that will be the differentiator. So it is going to be not so difficult.
Yeah. Before I move on to Andrea, I think you've raised an extremely important point of young people and parents, and I guess universities, having a significant sort of mindset change. Traditionally, when young people were looking at sort of future careers, it was about, identifying a solid career choice, joining a great corporation, getting a good salary, and your life is set. And I think, now I think what we are saying is that the time for mindset change to think entrepreneurially and realize that, the whole concept of employment and job seeking maybe isn't where the future lies entirely. And the whole entrepreneurial world of job creators, is going to be critically important. So thank you for that. Andrea, would you like to pick up on this topic and add to what Dr. Banerjee has shared?
So I heartily agree with what Dr. Banerjee said. I think that when students are looking at skills to develop, there's the hard skills, which is what you're going to study, which area, and then there's the soft skills that Dr. Banerjee has spoken about. The feedback that employers have given is that they are looking for students who are flexible and agile. They can adapt easily to circumstances. They are looking for critical thinking. They are looking for creative or design thinking. They are looking for analytical skills, and they are looking for teamwork. These are the types of skills that you can develop no matter which sector you are planning to go into. So it is important that you do develop them within yourself at the same time. In terms of hard skills, I'll just talk about it very briefly. We do see data analytics and data science come up again and again as an area that employers are interested in. We do see, for example, cybersecurity is a very new, very important field considering how much of our world has moved online these days. We do see business analysis as a field in which there are a lot of great opportunities coming up. So there are these upcoming areas that students should be considering rather than going perhaps for a generalist education. If you can specialize in something, choose something that gives you, I don't really like to say return on investment because I don't like turning education into a purely financial prospect. Choose something that adds value to your profile. Choose something that adds value to your career goals and where you would like to ultimately be. Don't choose something just because you have to choose something.
Thank you, Andrea. Well, I am going to pick up on the topic that you don't like talking about.
Return on investment.
And I'd like to put this question to Ernest. It's an area of huge concern, I think, for many people, for many students. And the question is, will students get a decent ROI for their studies in this sort of future world of work? Global education or education at leading institutions, wherever they may be, is enormously expensive. So, Ernest, would you like to comment on that question of can students expect a decent ROI on that investment?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been a student of economics, started studying, and I think it's all about allocation of resources finally at the end of the day. And education is one such. Acquiring and deploying is also an economic resource, so to speak. And I'm sure this panel and everyone, the parents watching here will actually endorse the point that learning never goes waste. When you apply, your learning will depend maybe on the economic situation of the country or the world or whatever it is, but it never goes waste. So I have found in my life, through my personal experience, when you acquire learning and skills and knowledge, okay, they come to help you in a much better way than I know people who have not done that. So I can clearly see that comparison. So my strong recommendation is that you must do everything by way of spending your money or your effort, or your energy, whatever else it is, your time, to acquire education, skills, knowledge, and competencies, because that is going to stand you in very good stead when the time comes. So that is a short answer to the return on your investment. I also want to bring in an aspect of, because I come from the corporate world, to say that the world has changed quite a bit, and therefore maybe temporary is the new permanent. So what I want to indicate here is we've heard a lot about the gig economy, and what is that happening today? People are becoming chefs sitting at home. So be ready to also embrace that kind of employment where you're able to be freelancing, providing your services to organizations, not necessarily on a permanent basis, but as and when required. And that's going to be the form of employment for the future. It gives you a lot more flexibility. It is a lot more well suited to the younger generation, and it's going to be well suited for organizations, and not merely looking at an employee-employee relationship of the past, where you were a full-time employee and just worked for one organization for a very long time. So those equations have changed, and I would advise that we should be ready with that kind of an attitude as well.
Well, Ernest, if we can pick up on the point that you've raised, and I'd like to put this question to start with to Dr. Banerjee. It's a direct lead on from what you were discussing. What will the jobs of the future actually look like? How will they be? And how do young people actually ride this change tsunami successfully?
Yeah, I think, it's a good question, and often I say it's a good question when we don't have a good answer. In the sense, I want to really address one issue that we are seeing not just change or a, transformational change, but a revolutionary change. So a lot of disruptions are happening in the world. So what I want to address and tell the youth is, don't be worried. Don't think about what you're learning now. You need the basis. It's going to be like your fundamental bricks that you're going to build on your new learning. So what I see tomorrow is definitely a much more mechanized and disruptive world where you're going to work more closely with machines. The things which are going to be more related to things that you're having doing the menial work which used to be done will be taken by with robots and bots coming in. I can see already, bots coming into our household, even cleaning a household. So I mean, a lot of changes which we are going to see in the typical world which will be taken over by the machines. But what I really feel that where you can make a difference is again your intellect, your ability to think, so certain things that you should choose is that how do you enhance that capability in you to become a thinker? How do you ideate your new skills? How do you come out with a new concept? So I think innovation, not just new normal, but a novel normal is the future. Where I think people should do engineering or say, I can see some questions people are asking. Somebody said, can I do an electrical engineering? Don't worry, go ahead and get your degree. But what you need to be ready for in the future, that you need to possibly adapt to the new world and do coding along with your engineering, or you should be able to work on artificial intelligence. Even, for example, when you are a student of journalism, I would say liberal arts is also going to be, it's having an impact even in our artificial thinking. Psychology, for that matter, is growing like, leaps and bounds, because you see that at the end of the day, people have realized that you need to have a good mental balance in order to be great, designers for the industry. So I think we require a very holistic approach, a very eclectic approach, where you create around you these years that you're going to do your study, that you do your basic degrees, but at the same time, connect to the world, do live projects, do immersion with the industry, so that you have new learning coming into. And finally, what I also want to address on is that this whole process of mentoring, which is going to be very critical for the universities, you need to be more integrated with the industries. Every higher learning institution cannot operate in silos. They need to collaborate. They need to create a league of institutions coming together to make an impact. And they are going to be the game changers. The youth of our country have to be the agents of change. So I think we need to give this to them. I mean, they have to possibly, because we don't know the world, what's going to happen in the next 5 years. None of us knew that, we are going to be hit by the pandemic 6 months back. Even the financial, projections that were done, is people are working on it and going back. Look at the GDP change that we are seeing. So there is something which is going to be uncertain. So be prepared for the uncertainty. So it is going to do a lot with your own resilience, your capability to connect to the people, collaborate. Rather than be competitive, I would say collaborate with people. Peer group is always going to be very important to you. So these are a few of my reactions.
Thank you. I think some very profound observations there. Really appreciate that. Andrea, any additions that you would like to make to that?
I think Dr. Banerjee covered that point really well. Nothing to add from my side at the moment.
Okay, that's wonderful. Ernest, I know this is sort of a topic that is fairly close to your heart. Any points that Dr. Banerjee has not raised that you would like to mention?
I think, look, for the audience here, and I used to be young once upon a time, graduating from college or let's say from my MBA program, and I was only thinking of a job. Very honestly, that's exactly what all of us think of even now, and they should be. And so they want very concrete answers around, how do I get to my next step? I think all that we as a panel are trying to emphasize is that the world has changed, and then you need to be not so insular, and you need to be a little bit more holistic in terms of how you look at your skill sets to be more employable. So you don't look at jobs, but you look at employability for a longer term. I think that's a very different concept from looking at a job immediately and getting picked. And that's what happens to some people, because if that job goes away, then they don't know what to do next. You should be a generalist at the same time, below or less above above the surface of being a specialist in an area, you must develop all the skills, especially the soft skills, to be able to be in the corporate world. I have seen so many times over that it's not the toppers who necessarily succeed in the corporate life. It's the people who are well-rounded, who know how to deal with people and how to apply their knowledge in the real world, and how to be very good in communication, etc. All of those so-called soft skills really are the hard skills that you have to learn. So I would say that I just want to remind the audience that it may seem like a tough time, maybe not many job opportunities coming. Take a pause, go back to studying, go back to acquiring more skills, be ready when the economy bounces back. You'll be the first one to take full advantage of that. I think that's the kind of message that I'd like to convey.
Okay, thank you, Ernest. Yeah, again, we're coming back to this theme of sort of holistic development. Yes, you need the technical skills. You also need the soft skills, entrepreneurial skills. The living life as a full human being, having a far greater global perspective than just what job am I going to be doing next. I noticed there have been quite a few questions that have come up, and these questions are being answered. I'm just having a quick look. Yep, I think they're being answered as we go along. Here's a question that I think would, I guess, summarize a lot of our thoughts so far and maybe add some new thoughts. So how can students turn this massive external COVID crisis and disruption into meaningful opportunities for the future and positive change? Who would like to have the first crack at that?
I'll have a first crack.
Please go ahead.
I think what this crisis has done is it has given a lot of people the opportunity to rethink whether the path that they're on is the one that they really want to be on. And whether it's because somebody has lost a job, whether it is because somebody has had to delay their study plans, whether it is because somebody has had to wait an extraordinarily long time to get their end of year results, which I know a lot of the students have been in a very nervous situation there. It's a time to think and reflect. It's a time to think, is this what I really want to be doing with my life? Is there something else that could give me greater purpose or that could make me happier? I think that is one really important aspect that the pandemic has given us, which is time to stop, think, reflect, replan, re-strategize about where we'd like to be when it's over. And it's one that I've seen many people taking advantage of. We've spoken previously about the entrepreneurial spirit, and as I said earlier, I'm based in Mumbai, and I've been very impressed at the way that people have come forward to fill gaps, whether it is volunteers with NGOs who've been helping to look after migrant workers, whether it's people taking on the manufacturing of face shields and handmade masks and so on, whether it is the home cook and delivery sector. There's been a lot of innovation, there's been a lot of entrepreneurship in order to address problems that have come up during this pandemic. And I think if you are having a gap right now, look for where you can add value. If you have lost your job, if you can't get a job, can you go and volunteer with an organization? You can learn some really great soft skills and some really great management skills in the nonprofit sector as well. See if you can get an internship, whether it's a digital internship or otherwise with an organization. Can you take up a new online learning opportunity until you can join your studies? There's many ways in which students can look to the future. There's many ways in which they can gain new skills, in which they can contribute meaningfully. They just have to look for them.
Thank you, Andrea. And one of the points I'd like to pick up on that you've just made, to use this as a time of reflection and sort of future planning. And a lot of the work that I do with young people, but also with very senior corporate people, which I think is critical, is, as soon as possible in life, try to find, the why behind the what we do. Try to find a, a true purpose that really motivates us and, gets us excited. And it's a great time to do that. So thank you very much for that. Dr. Banerjee, and before you answer, folks, if you'd like to raise any additional questions, now's the time to do it on the chat. So please feel free to do so, and I will allocate some time to do it. What we're looking for is sort of the bigger picture, generic questions, and our team is already doing a great job of answering the specific ones. So, Dr. Banerjee, over to you.
Yeah, I think Andrea made some great points, and I just want to emphasize on the fact that it's what is important today, that we are in the times of FOMO. We always are looking at something else when we are doing, right now we are here. But so I want to emphasize on the fact of mindfulness, which is so critical. You can do only critical thinking, creativity will come when you are mindful. So what I wanted to tell and wanted to share that at this point, why don't you focus is your own self, your own family, your own institution. And I think one of the things that I have seen, the Big Four and many large, good multinationals, they have come ahead and they are doing great mentoring sessions and offering online internships, to students. And very senior people have some more time because they're traveling less. So I think it's time to grab those opportunities, in terms of focusing on self, not just your inner self. I mean, in terms of when you do a SWOT, when you do a typical SWOT analysis of your strength, weakness, where all you need to improve. So why not improve that? And let's utilize the time, be mindful of this time, and that should be the game plan. And I keep emphasizing it, but you will not believe the world tomorrow will be those who can create the collaboration. I have seen many entrepreneurs who became very successful even through using the platform. So think of a mobile phone and what all kind of things that you can do around it, because that is going to be the world for many of us in the next decades to come. So think about that through how do you reach out to people, your marketing is all about how do you create, how do you communicate your brand. So, I mean, there are lots that you can do. And I have seen, when I interact with the youth, they have great ideas. So you need to network with the senior mentors who have ideas with experience. And you need to also please go back and read, because one of the things which I have seen that we don't want to do research. We are just possibly Googling and then want to emerge with a new model. Please don't do that. You may see that how it's important to know how businesses failed. It's important to know what didn't take off. And it is also important to know how Wright brothers could still fly the aircraft. Because, that kind of resilience and the patience that is needed. So show that now. I mean, that is my message. And this is something which I feel that is happening. And institutions are going to help you do that. All the best of the universities are focusing on how do you create that environment of higher learning, of experiential learning. So this is all I would like to share.
Thank you so much. So Ernest, what would your contribution be?
With respect to Ron?
The question is, how can students turn the massive external COVID crisis and disruption into meaningful opportunities for the future, and how do they manage it?
Yeah. I mentioned that earlier. I was going by the learning we all got from the 2009 crisis. There was a time when there was not enough of jobs available for the new entrants. I think what research shows is that people went back to actually studying and getting back, upgrading and acquiring newer skills. And indeed, the world did bounce back in style, and we know how well we went on. And those are the people who could, take full advantage of the opportunities. So I think we've already spoken about certain sectors that will be slow, but certain new sectors that are emerging. I think the panel has spoken about how you can pursue the discipline that you're passionate about but you need to actually be having a more holistic approach about how you will apply that discipline in the real world. Also be flexible about the employment engagement. Employee and employee relationship is now changing. Maybe our parents, were lifetimers in an organization. I was not, but I was still attached to maybe 5 or 6 organizations. And my daughter will probably be a freelancer. So I think there's nothing right or wrong about any of those. Those equations are changing, and I think we would invite our younger generation to be ready for the change. Take full advantage by preparing themselves, right? The soft skills, the resilience you're talking about, and all of those aspects are very, very important. How do you market yourself? How do you use technology to be staying connected? How do you collaborate rather than have a win-lose situation? So all of those are ideas that you have to start by taking small measure. Actually, start living it, right? And it's about being aware. I think those who start living it in small doses will see a dramatic change in their prospects. Is what I believe.
Thank you very much, Ernest. I'm just looking at the questions. I think a lot of questions are coming up and they're being answered by our specialists. So if you'd like any questions, if you have any questions, you would like to put to specific panel members, please do so. We've got a few minutes left before we close. The last point that I'd like to raise, and this I think has come up on a number of occasions. What is the smartest way for young people, to develop a great personal brand, for want of a better word, or profile? There's all the social media stuff out there. Very briefly, I'd really appreciate maybe just in a minute and a half from each person, each panelist. How should young people approach the whole area of building their personal brand that will be a critical component in their future careers? So who'd like to kick off on that?
Shall I start?
Andrea, I can see you looking at me, so would you like to kick off? Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. All right, I've just got one point to make on this. If you want to build a good personal brand, it's very important to walk the talk. I think social media these days, we see a lot of people who present one thing, might be another, but the thing is that companies, private citizens are actually quite, they're quite on the ball. They can work out when something that is being presented that is not there. It is more important to accurately reflect who you are, have a very, a very honest personal brand that truly reflects who you are as a person. Don't try and make yourself out to be something that you're not. Don't fake it till you make it. Be honest about who you are and work on building yourself in order to build your brand. That would be my advice.
Thank you. So the whole concept of authenticity. On your true self coming across.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Dr. Banerjee.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I would like to tell the youth is that what is the story you're going to tell to the world? And so for doing that, I suggest that design for life. You do a little exercise of designing your life in terms of not only the goals, the long-term or the short-term goals that you do. What are your real terminal values? What is your purpose in life, and possibly what you find meaningful? So when you do that, you're going to create an entire story about yourself. And I second what Andrea said. You are going to give some examples of what you're doing. So people understand, like, doing is believing, and you need to show those results of what you have done. It could be a small camp, a leadership, small survey that you may have conducted. The kind of so some of the things that you do is create the story around you, who you are as a person, what you believe in, what are your purposes in life, what you find meaningful, and finally, what you're happy, what makes you happy. Because today, one of the bigger crises in the world today is not just about the economic crisis. We are seeing a world which is becoming more and more depressed. we see youngsters facing a great challenge, you know, about, you'll be shocked to know 1 in every 7 individuals are suffering from mental health issues. So when you're telling a story to the world,
sorry, Dr. Banerjee, I'm going to have to cut you short there. Our time is just about up. Thank you so much for that. So Ernest, in 30 seconds, what would be your take?
Well, you know, it's always been and will be substance over form. So unless you have the ingredient to be something that is of value outside, there's no point talking about it. You will very soon get exposed. You know, I hire a lot of CEOs and very senior people, and we do forensics on those people. There are expert firms who figure out what is the social media, how are they presenting themselves. We also do deep down analysis in terms of how were they experienced at the workplace in actual life. We several companies. So we put all the data together and then figure out who the person is, and then we take our call. So people are not fools. They know exactly who you are. I mean, just sensationalizing yourself quickly because your peer is doing that is not going to be long lasting. So I know it's a time of social media. I don't understand that very much, but ultimately it's a substance that will triumph over form. Actually, we should always remember that. That is going to be true for many, many years to come.
Thank you, Ernest. So, yeah, just summarizing, I really appreciate the advice that's been given there from Andrea. Be authentic. Dr. Banerjee, what is your story? And Ernest, as you say, what is the substance behind it, the authenticity behind it? So, I think if our students followed that advice, they would do very well. So, folks, we've come to the end of the panel. What I'd like to do to all our panelists is say namaste. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. To all our audience out there, I hope and trust that this has been of significant value for you. And certainly from the panel and from TC Global, absolutely, we wish you well for the future. There are fantastic things happening, and please remember, TC Global is literally a call away, an email away. We have a fantastic team of relationship managers, specialists who are, we're talking about authenticity, who really are absolutely and totally committed, to helping you make great career decisions and supporting you through the whole process. So everyone, thank you so much. Thank you to the panel again for taking the time out. Thank you to the audience for joining us. Good luck, God bless, and let's speak soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Ron. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, all.